Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Ghost Storytime with Rob. It's still October, and I'm going to take advantage of the last couple of weeks of this month with another true ghost story for you. And this one may prove to be one of the scariest yet. And so I want you to pay close attention and see if you can figure this out before I get to the end. Here we go. The Outcasts. If there is a stain on the record of our forefathers, one dark hour in the earliest history of American colonies, it would be the hanging of the so-called witches of Salem. But that was a pinpoint in place and time, a brief lapse into hysteria. For the most part, our 17th century colonists were scrupulously fair, even in fear. There was one group of people they feared with reason, a society, you might say, whose often insidious craft had claimed a multitude of victims ever since the Middle Ages in Europe. One group of people hated and feared from Massachusetts Bay to Virginia. The magistrates would not burn them at the stake, although surely a great many of the colonists might have recommended such a solution. Our forefathers were baffled by them. In the first place, where did they come from? Of all who sailed from England to Plymouth in 1620, not one of those two-legged vermin was aboard. Vermin. That's what the colonists called them. Parasites who fed on human misery, spreading sorrow and confusion wherever they went. Destructive, they were called, and they still were permitted coexistence with the colonists. For a while, anyway. Of course, there were colonial laws prohibiting the practice of their infamous craft. Somehow, a way was always found around those laws. And in 1641, Massachusetts Bay Colony took a novel approach to this problem. The governors attempted to starve those devils out of existence through economic exclusion. They were denied wages, and thereby it was hoped that they would perish. 4 years later, Virginia followed the example of Massachusetts Bay, and for a while, it seemed that the dilemma had been resolved. It had not. Somehow the parasites managed to survive, and the mere nearness of them made the colonists' skin crawl. And in 1658 in Virginia, the final solution: banishment, exile. The treacherous ones were cast out of the colony. At last, after decades of enduring the psychological gloom, the sun came out, the birds sang, and all was right with the world. And the elation continued for almost a generation. I'm not sure why the Virginians eventually allowed the outcast to return, but yes, they did. In 1680, after 22 years, the despised ones were readmitted to the colony on the condition that they be subjected to the strictest of all surveillance. How soon we forget. For indeed, over the next half century or so, the imposed restrictions were slowly, quietly swept away. And those whose treachery had been feared since the Middle Ages ultimately took their place in society again. You see, the vermin that once infested colonial America, the parasites who preyed on the misfortune of their neighbors until finally they were officially banished from Virginia. Those dreaded, despised, and inevitably outcast masters of confusion were none other than lawyers. And now you know the rest of the story. Well, that runs a shout out for my brother-in-law, Lars. And anyway, what else can I say? I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you are safe and have a great day. And until tomorrow, stay away from those lawyers.